There you go.
Okay.
Fine.
And post the YouTube link.
Yeah, I'll figure out how to do that. Okay.
All right, so while Martin's doing that, to recap what I just said, we started talking about GRCon. So it's going to start in a couple of weeks, actually. So September 14th or 15th is the intro day, and then the conference starts Tuesday through Friday. And then the one thing I was saying is that one thing to start publicizing or letting everybody know who's coming is that we're going to have a welcome event that Monday. So Monday, September 15th. It'll start either 7 or 8 o'clock. We're still locking down the venue, but just come and hang out. It's going to be very informal. Come for as long as you want. Just meet everybody, say hi, catch up with people, and yeah, it should be really fun. As just a way to get everybody rolling into the week. Yeah, so I think that's all that I really want to say. We'll definitely be publicizing more about that once the details are wrapped up and worked out. Otherwise, Ben, do we want to say anything right now about the tutorials? We haven't quite nailed down everything, but it's probably a good idea to get some info out there for people.
Yeah. So can people hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just realized my mic had not been muted this whole time, so I apologize if you heard me typing. But yeah, so there's a room, if everyone has seen the location map that Tom posted, one of the rooms is called the tutorial room, and our goal for that is to enable people to get help from GNU Radio expert users and developers. So the way we'll be doing that is setting up a sort of ticketing system where people can request help on certain topics. And that might be something very specific, like a good example from Martin was, I'm trying to receive FM broadcast radio on my B200, and my flow graph isn't working. That's obviously a very specific topic for a specific platform, a specific use case, and even a flow graph that's already written but not working. To something more high level, like, I don't understand GNU Radio PMTs. Can someone explain these to me? So our goal is to get everyone's tickets together that they would like covered, they want help with while they're at their conference and surrounded by expert users, and have volunteers come and take tickets and help people with their flow graphs and maybe teach small tutorials. So we're working on getting the logistics together to make this happen. We're almost have the infrastructure done, and I expect that we'll probably make announcements. Announcements at the end of the week usually don't get quite as much attention. So we might wait until early next week to make the announcement, but everyone should see something come out about that pretty shortly.
Great.
Anybody have any questions or suggestions about that?
No, I will say though that when I was at SIGCOM earlier this week, people were asking about that, like what's the level of expertise attendees need, and so I think that this is going to be a really welcome concept to hold throughout the week.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to go very well.
Yep. Okay, so anything else that I want to deliver, any information? I guess the only other thing is that if you haven't heard, we are very, very close to selling out the conference, which is great, but I also feel like people who have been waiting and some people don't sign up until like the last week or so before a conference could be disappointed, which is too bad. But I think it's a really good size for what we want to do this year. So I'm really, really happy and excited. But just putting that out there so that if you are interested and you are a procrastinator on these things, you probably don't want to procrastinate too much longer and get your ticket and get your seat soon.
So John Maltby tells us that it's actually already sold out, but there'll be a waiting list, and there's a high chance of getting a ticket from the waiting list if you're, up at the top of that waiting list.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think, let's see, if he's not saying anything else to add, yeah. I think that's really all that I have. Just keep an eye on the webpage. We'll put announcement, as things get closer, we'll put announcements there. We'll update the schedule so that everybody knows information and locations for things. But otherwise, I think we're doing pretty well. We're pretty good on this.
Yeah, don't forget to buy your GNU Radio sweater or T-shirt before you come.
There is, yeah, Spreadshirt. What is it? GNURadio.spreadshirt.com.
Yes, that's it.
Yep. Come wearing the T-shirt of the band you're going to see.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all we need to say. It's going to be an awesome event. Anyway.
Yeah.
Next item, GSOC. Okay. So GSOC is actually finished. There's been a pencils down. Was it on Friday? I'm not quite sure. No, it was on Monday. The pencils down, but like there will be evaluations soon, and we'll put out an announcement when it's actually over. Most of the students will actually be at GRCon presenting their stuff. One way or another, there's definitely going to be presentations, but some students also have posters or even demos set up, which will be fun. Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about GSOC all summer, so I don't feel like I don't need to go on for ages here. Only thing I'd like to add is that we're definitely going to sign up for next year's GSOC again.
Yep.
Okay. Right, so guided tutorials. So this is something that's been going on for a long time now. Started off basically after last GRCon, so I'm really glad that we actually got it done before this year's. We have new tutorials in place. The difference between these tutorials and what we have in the original tutorial section is that we actually designed them from scratch. There's like a story line. Like if you're a beginner, then you can do 7 tutorials, like one after another, and they'll sort of build up. We've like finished alpha testing them and have officially announced a beta test on the mailing list. And just in case you're listening to this but haven't actually read the announcement, we are very happy about feedback from everyone in these tutorials. One thing we can't change right now is the actual style. So if you don't like the style sheet, that's because like we're not going to change that right now because that's kind of built into the wiki. But everything else, like we're really happy to get your feedback. Maybe there's typos in there. Maybe it just doesn't make sense, and we've been so blind to our own tutorials now that we can't see that. All kind of feedback is very welcome, and we have a email address set up for that. I think it's tutorials@gnuradio.org, but you'll find it on the tutorials page, which is also linked in the in the call notes on the wiki page. Yeah, and we've already gotten a lot of feedback, and we've already started integrating that, so they're getting better and better. Okay, I think. Does anyone have anything to add to the tutorials?
No, but just to reiterate, we've already made improvements based on feedback. There were, some typos or some slightly, old information as we were updating things that didn't, propagate to the text. So we've already been able to make it better because of the feedback. Hopefully, we can kind of take them out of beta by the conference based on people's feedback, but we'll see.
Martin, the link in the call to guided tutorials goes to a new page and not the existing one.
I'll fix that.
Yeah, I just realized that as I typed it in here.
Also, I do want to point out for anyone who hasn't looked at tutorials and is listening that the new tutorials are not linked to from the primary tutorial page. Like if you go to the GNU Radio wiki landing page and then click tutorials in the sidebar, they're not linked to from there yet. So please use the link that Tom posted.
Yeah, and that's because it's we're still in this beta test. As soon as we make them official and live, we'll make that a prominent link on the tutorials page and maybe even just on the front page.
Cool. Okay, recent updates to the code. So Michael was working on the parallel build issue, and we finally fixed it. Thought CMake and Michael won. Maybe you want to add something to that, Michael?
I think Michael's been having audio issues today.
Well, let me comment briefly. It is fixed. Neither Tom nor I have been able to break it, and have got some testing reports back from a couple of people as well. So I'm pretty confident that the issue we have been seeing is corrected. Basically, what was going on is you could do a parallel build, but the more cores you gave to it, the more likely you were to run into a race condition that would cause not everything to get compiled. And that's existed since day one of the CMake crossover from AutoTools. But now that issue is behind us, and we can happily do make-j on machines with enough RAM.
Coverity issues.
Yeah, this I just wanted to point out. There aren't any major ones there, but we haven't really been good at promoting recently the Coverity static analysis tool, and I think that there are some outstanding issues there. So again, for people who are into this stuff or are hoping to make contributions to GNU Radio, this is a great place to start. To help us to really start getting your feet wet with GNU Radio and helping us kind of close some of these issues out. So the link provided here should take you to Coverity. I think you need to actually get an account before you can really see any of the GNU Radio stuff, but that's pretty easy. Just so, like I said, if you're motivated and interested in working on the project and helping us out, this is a good place to start. Nothing severe here either that I've witnessed when it comes across my desk.
Just to jump in real quick, so we originally got this set up last year at the GR conference, and we had a pretty good workflow in place for how you mark issues as you're working. Basically, how you claim issues, how you mark them as resolved, and then how they get merged, and then marked as really merged and done. Did that ever get documented anywhere? Do we have a way to share that with people who want to get involved and don't already know the workflow?
I want to say yes, but having said that, I don't recall where it is. I think it might be on the information, like the GRCon 13, wiki page that was set up. I'm almost positive it's there somewhere.
Okay, I'll take.
But it's like not in a place that's actually incredibly helpful.
We have a contributor guide on the wiki, and it should be in there. Yes. And I just opened it, so we link to Coverity, it says that it exists. But there should be some more explanations.
All right, I'll take an item to fill out the Coverity docs on the contributor guide in the wiki.
Excellent.
Martin, if you want to give that one to me.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay. Cool. So yeah, bugs, fix them. Sebastian, tell us about GRC. I've heard people with OCD will be very happy about your recent changes.
Yes. Well, I caught myself with OCD last week, and a severe case. No, one of the items on the wish list, at least in my mind, was that people always were arranging blocks to make their connections straight, and that was kind of hard because the canvas in GRC has these tiny pixels, and now I've overlaid a coarser grid, which blocks snap to while you drag them, and so it's now pretty easy to align connections and ports. So this feature is enabled by default, but there's a menu item where you can just disable it if you don't like it, and once it's disabled, you can enable it temporarily if you use the mod key. So I'd be happy to get some feedback on this. Maybe some bugs I missed because it's in the guts of the graphic system, so there might be some corner cases. Whatever.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty happy about that, Sebastian. And I've used it a bit. I haven't gone to extremes with my with any flow graphs, but it's been working great for me. I think we're all probably just waiting for Balance response. That'll put it to the real test.
Right.
But it is important to note that this, and as I mentioned in the IRC and the info, that this and the auto hiding of the labels, which I love from a development perspective, you can turn that off. Again, so just go to the view menu, and then there's just a that you can enable or disable both of these features, depending on how you feel about them or like or don't like them. Or for certain scenarios, like when you want to do a screenshot of a flow graph, I think that's a very good thing that point that Ballin brought up with me the other day is taking a screenshot. If you don't have the port labels there, it can be very confusing for people. So these are toggleable. They are you can enable and disable them on your own.
Yeah. So one thought I had on that is I don't think we can ever find a consensus on whether or not the default should be on or off. But maybe we can make that an option in GNU-radio.conf, so you can sort of set it the default, for whatever you like.
I had thought to bring that up. Yeah.
It's persistent, so if you set it once.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, exactly. It's persistent, so it's your own preferences. So it's kind of its own preference file. Yeah, I was trying to think of the same thing, Martin. If we could do this kind of at compile time, but now we're just adding like all sorts of questions and things. And I think the important thing to know and to get out there is that these things are easily changeable in the menus of GRC. So that also brings up the point, and not to put Mark or Sebastian on the spot here, but we really do need to work on our documentation for GRC. But we've been talking about that anyways.
Yeah, so for anyone who wants to join the GNU Radio Companion working group, that would be an excellent place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll talk about working groups in a minute. There's some Neon stuff happening. Nathan, maybe you can tell us what's going on.
Yeah, so in this last month, I guess, we added Neon protokernels and support for writing more Neon protokernels. So anyone interested in Neon and ARM-related things can go to work now. One of the, I guess, bigger new things is the addition of assembly support, so you can write .s files. And right now it's mostly set up for Neon. Eventually it may go out to Intel or x86 architectures, but we'll see where that
we
goes.
should have no problem doing it with the x86 architectures. The only difference is that inline assembly for x86 seems to work just fine.
Yeah.
So you can easily do that.
So we've tested out a few cases here. One is, I guess, the cross-compile through Open Embedded or through BitBake, and then the cross-compile through an SDK. And those both seem to work pretty well for us right now. The, I guess, broken build, which can be fixed by setting flags manually, is the native ARM builds. And there's, if you go to the embedded page, there's some information on how to fix that. So with the Neon kernels that were added, they should perfectly overlap with ORC. And so eventually we should be able to phase out ORC. And that was one of the goals of doing this, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
So
and
if
also,
there's any problems with this, then I guess raise them on the mailing list.
Yeah. And as far as like ORC is concerned, there is a -d enable ORC equals false you can do now on CMake, and that will turn off Volk support or ORC support in Volk even if ORC is there. So it's now more easily removable for testing, even if you don't have to uninstall ORC to turn it off now. And just for everybody's familiarity, it's not that we dislike ORC, and actually ORC has shown itself to be pretty good for ARM optimizations. I did some pretty extensive testing between ORC and non-ORC and these Neon and assembly and things like that. The issue is just that ORC has a hard float. I think we've talked about this before, but it's got a bug in the hard float ABI for the ARM devices. And as far as we can tell, Nathan published a bug report, and it hasn't been addressed. So we can't trust ORC on hard float ARM processors, which is becoming the default model for ARM anyways. So we're just trying to get away from it.
Okay.
Yep.
Qt GUI. Tom.
Yeah, so this is kind of Martin and I did this a lot of work, almost actually up to and then just immediately after 3.7.4. Let's see, we've improved a number of issues of the Qt GUI. One of the goals that we had, and really started focusing on was to make sure that all features that are in WX are also in Qt GUI. And now that is true at least for all of the flow graphs that we've done and all of the examples in GNU Radio. So we've converted all of the examples in GNU Radio master branch to using Qt. And so that helped us expose a few of these missing items. So that's now done. And so we're pretty good on what we feel is the support and the stability of Qt GUI to replace your WX-based issues. I think I know maybe like one or two things that are very very corner case that WX does. So I'll have to think about those and address those. But we're pretty good on our feeling and our support for for our use of Qt GUI. And bugs and things like that have been worked out. So we are debating, and it might not be 3.7.5, but maybe 3.7.6 when GRC gets switched over to default to Qt GUI. I think Martin, Jonathan, and myself are all now fairly comfortable with this, that it could come very soon. Now, of course, that doesn't disable WX. It just means that the default is Qt to try to start migrating people over there by default. But yeah, I feel pretty good about it at this point. And yeah, that's all I really want to say about it.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I would vote for doing the 3.7.5 switchover to make that default.
Which is great to hear, because Jonathan's our more conservative member on the board for moving stuff. So yeah, if he's on board, then I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, so as usual, test the shit out of that Qt GUI stuff. I guess I shouldn't have said that on live broadcast, right?
We'll just blame your poor English skills.
Yeah, let's do that. So for all the children listening to this broadcast, I apologize. Yeah, that pretty much wraps it up with code changes. We'll be having releases soon. I'm just going to pass it off to Jonathan to talk about the upcoming releases.
Sure. We have a page, the 3.7.5 work in progress that Tom linked to in the dev call list. We're about half done with that, but given the timing of the conference and the desire to get out a number of bug fixes as well as all of these GRC wonderful new features, the plan right now is to, if we can pull it off, get a 3.7.5 out in time to have not only available for the conference, but to have a new GNU Radio DVD based on 3.7.5 also available at the conference. I give that a mostly likely to happen, but not a guarantee yet. There's a couple of issues we need to resolve before we make that decision.
We should at least have a 3.7.4.1 patch out, which will contain a number of fixes, but yeah, none of these really cool new features.
The other thing, as Tom had mentioned in the outline here, is that there's no pressure for a 3.8 release. It's quite a ways off. Everything that's happened in the last 6 months has been quite easy to do on the master branch. We haven't had to incorporate anything that has broken the API compatibility. So I think there'll be at least 2 more releases, if not more, of the 3.7.5 series before we start thinking about implementing the changes in 3.8 and having that out. Tom, you might want to comment on that as well.
Yeah, the only thing that's really pushing me from just a maintenance perspective is for 3.8 is the dependency issues. I've been maintaining a box to try to keep the minimum dependency requirements that we list in our build guide, and which is basically our, it's a contract essentially with our users that says if you support this version of this dependency, it's going to work with GNU Radio up to 3.7. And it's becoming harder and harder to maintain that as we want to do new stuff, as other dependencies grow and expand and leave things behind. Even GCC is it's harder to install some of these older dependencies. So it's becoming more of a pain to keep up. But we've been doing it, and we've had to make a few adjustments in CMake and things like that to maintain backwards compatibility. So that's what's mostly pushing me at this point. Not even really an API thing, but just those dependency issues, and those we just have to keep an eye on and make sure we have the right cases set for them. But that's the only real issue. And so to finish this up. Identifying which are the proper versions to update to. We don't want to go too new because we don't want to force people to have to hand install things like we sometimes used to have to. But we want to identify what the right new version is that will satisfy our needs for updated dependencies without increasing the burden on the users to install stuff.
I guess this will also be a final call for anyone who wants to get stuff merged in if they're working on it. The window for things to release for a 3.7.5 in time for the conference is probably only another week or so.
Yeah.
After that, it would just be critical bug fixes before we close it off to start freshening it up for a release.
Yep.
Okay. Working groups. So as usual, we'll have working group leader reports, but there's something new because we have a new working group, and I'm actually going to pass it off to Tim to introduce him and his new working group.
Hey, so yeah, I guess we've been talking about this for a little while, but we've just started talking more publicly about it. And I guess the idea is I'm starting up a work group tentatively called the Functional Architecture Signal Processing Systems Group, which is a little bit wordy. But basically it's looking at different ways that people build modem systems in GNU Radio and trying to formalize and improve some of the issues around them. So some of the first issues are looking at like tag stream issues that we've had and trying to get on top of where everyone's kind of shortcomings are with stream tag systems and how we can address them and how that mixes in with the traditional streaming model as well as the new messaging model. So there'll be much more to come on this, probably at the conference, and probably not a whole lot before then.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that we'll have the working groups will have a much larger focus at the conference than last year.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I'd like to get as much participation as possible, so please, if you're interested in this, send me an email, send me your ideas, like topics that you want to include. And there's a wiki page up now that kind of goes over kind of the initial charter and goals of the group. So that's all up there if you want to go read it in detail. So that's about it.
Okay. Nice, thanks. We're looking forward to whatever your group produces. Okay, so Nathan and Sebastian, you've already kind of talked a lot about what's happened, but like maybe you have something to add, just from a working group organization perspective. I'm gonna ask Nathan first.
Sure. So immediately I'll be editing the Volk working group page so that it updates, I guess, the goals of the group. And so if anyone has any input on that, you can either, once I set up the page, either edit that or send me an email. Otherwise, there won't be any call until, I guess, the conference. And I don't know how much the conference organizers here want to talk about how the working groups are going to work at the conference, but that's pretty
Yeah, we'll
much
mention
it.
that after everybody gives their check-in.
All right.
Sebastian?
Well, it's basically the same. I'm gonna update the wiki page first, just like formalize the plan, so to say, and I have some stuff I'm working on, and also Seth, which is he's doing the versioning tags, which I hope that we can get into the next version. So starting from then, GRC files will have like an internal version tag, which allows us to, at some point in the future, maybe add stuff to the file format without breaking it for everyone.
So what happens if you open a file with an so your GNU Reader companion version is older than the file? What happens? to that?
Yeah, it's called a XML processing option, so it is ignored by older versions which don't have that in the. It's not part of the DTD.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if we ever do change the file format, then really old versions, which completely ignore the version tag, will just fail to load it. But at some point, it might be inevitable to, if we want to add stuff, to extend the DTD.
Okay.
But at least with the version tag, we have the ability to warn users.
Yeah,
about that.
And I think Sebastian, your plan too is to slowly introduce these so that before they really make an impact, the GRC files, anything that's edited by GRC, once this is introduced, will add the version tag, so it'll give us time for this to propagate before it does anything actual to your flow graph.
Right.
I mean, it's still not going to solve the whole problem, far in the future of people opening up really old GRC files, but yeah, that is certainly a concern that we're trying to mitigate as much as possible.
Well, I guess that's a bit like people running 3.6 out of 3 modules with 3.7.
Yeah.
This can't be avoided at some point.
At some point, yep.
Yeah. Okay, so Phil, what about you and your group?
Okay, I did a little bit of checking. I haven't done much. Not much has happened in the past month or so. I am in the process of updating the stable branch of the repo manifest so that Nathan's changes do get into people doing stable builds, though. And as always, success reports, machines that have worked and things that we haven't covered, please let me know. If you have any questions, comments, patches, all welcome.
Yeah, I've got to talk to you about some of the stuff that I've been doing, or some of the things that I would like to see in the updates.
Yeah, something that I will say is pretty much at this point I'm going to stop backporting stuff into the stable branch of MetaOE and OE and start looking forward to the next OE release, which is basically year end. So things like zero message queue should start to show up, in master branches and then end up in stable when the next release happens.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about it for me.
Yeah, and then just I'll make a point to the embedded wiki page where I've been a few of us have been putting up information about what we're supporting, what's out there, what we're doing, various devices, and some notes on what I've done or what it's taken to get them to work. Almost got my Odroid up and running, so that's good. So yeah, just if you have insights or things to add, or if you're stuck on something with one of the embedded devices, take a look at that page and see if there's any hints to help you out.
Yeah, I need to link that page.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, Doug. Doug?
All right. Cool. Can you hear me?
It's a bit noisy, but you're coming through.
Can you hear me?
Um,
All right.
Hey, Doug,
Sorry.
you're breaking up.
So we had a call last week. All right.
Yeah,
I may have
you're
to
really coming in and
try
out.
rejoining from.
Okay.
Did Doug say he's going to rejoin the call?
I think he's gonna try. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So while we're waiting for him, was there anybody else that we needed?
Yeah. So there's the community working group, which is it's a bit different from the others because it doesn't have a clear mission statement, like a very specific mission, and there's actually nothing going on there. But it'll be rebooted at the GNU Radio conference.
Great.
I think that's all the groups except for Doug's, right?
Yeah. So I guess while we're waiting for Doug to come back, I'll mention that it was talked about before. GRCon is going to have a large amount of activity surrounding the working groups. It was a good thing last year, and this year we're just going to try to get more of it. So, as a conference, this is also helping us to solidify these working groups, to grow each of the communities, and to get direct feedback from them. So each day of the technical conference itself, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the last, I think it's hour and a half to 2 hours, is dedicated to the working groups. And each working group is going to each day is going to have 2 working groups operating simultaneously. And we'll post that on the agenda. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but we'll put it on the main agenda page on the website. And the idea is that we want to get as much time as possible to each working group, but we can't have them all individually operating from a size perspective and yada yada yada. So there'll be trying to be two non-overlapping groups of interest. So hopefully that that you won't be too pulled between both of the concurrent working groups and can add your voice to the proper one. So more information on how that's going to operate at the conference. When for the people who come and are interested, we'll go over the actual information of how this is going to operate. But it is going to be a huge part of the method of the working process of the conference, to be followed up at the end of the day by a 5-minute wrap up from the working group chairs to the rest of the conference, so that we can all understand what happened, what discussions came about during those times. So for the conference attendees, just so that you know that's going to happen. More information is going to be posted on the agenda, and specific details will come out at the conference. So we have Doug back. Let's see if he can.
All right. Do I sound better now?
Much better.
All right. Great. So yeah, just to kind of follow up what I kind of started saying, there was a call last week. I think that went pretty well. It was mostly about Alfredo's GSOC project and particularly talking about trying to integrate some of his work into mainline, which I'm fairly excited about. Like the other groups, I do not plan on having another call before the actual GRCon, but I have had a couple of discussions with people interested in, lots of people interested in GPU accelerators, so I'm hoping that some of them will show up to GRCon. We can have a discussion about other types of coprocessors besides just the shared memory, like the Keystone and some of the other the more, as Phil likes to call them, the more closely coupled systems that we have been focused on this past, well, at least over the summer. So yeah, hopefully that'll be a much larger group at GRCon at the working group discussion.
And just to extend on what Tom just said, there'll actually be time, or rather space set aside for working groups to do stuff, even outside of the time that we've allocated. I don't know, Tom, if you actually mentioned that specifically, but we already have more time allocated for the working groups themselves. But if that's not enough, then there's still time and space left to I don't know, work on individual projects. And then there's also the Hackfest. So if working groups want to get stuff done at the GNU Radio conference, there's ample opportunity to do so. Okay, I'd say that's it. Unless anyone else wants to bring up something last minute. Nope.
Nope.
Good. Okay, that was a very productive call. Sorry? Tim, did you say something?
Yeah, has anyone used the single-threaded scheduler this year at all?
I'm going to say no. It's unlikely. Yeah.
All right, good.
The only place I've heard it discussed, I haven't used it personally, but I do recall that the GR GPU out-of-tree module did rely on it, and
it did originally, yes, and I believe that they figured out how to get away from it, that they could do the scheduling properly even within the thread per block. But yes, that's the last known issue was that work, and of course, the GR GPU work would never, that was always supposed to be a stopgap. It's like because they understood how to schedule things between the processor and the GPU with the single-threaded scheduler, but everybody knew that was not a long-term solution because we're all moving away from that, and we'll pretty much have, and there's features like the tags and the message passing system don't work in the single-threaded scheduler anyways. So it's a very crippled version of the scheduler at this point, and has mostly been kept around for debugging purposes. Because sometimes it's just easier to understand operations when you're just dealing with a single thread. But I feel like the majority of us have figured out how to do that. How to work within the constraints of the multi-threaded system. So I don't even feel like that's really a necessary thing. So I put, I think it's going. The idea that came up yesterday when Tim and I were talking about this is that we might want to officially deprecate this in 3.8 and then remove it by 3.9.
Have we figured out a mechanism for marking things as being deprecated like that?
Mostly it's going to be on the notes page. There were thoughts about putting deprecation warnings into the code itself, but we've always kind of shied away from that it's just ugly. Although we do have the logging system, so we could actually kind of easily put it into the logger and have it mostly turned off for people who don't want to see messages like that. But mostly its deprecation has been done on the wiki and in conversation with the community.
I bring it up because I know that Clang and GCC have a mechanism for marking it as deprecated, and I think they both are compatible, and then I think MSVC has a slightly different way. So you could easily have a macro that,
right.
GR deprecated that then does the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a favor of marking them, like just killing the doxygen block and just like putting deprecated in there.
And Jonathan,
Yeah, no, I was going to say we have the wiki page that for proposed changes for 3.8, and we do document there things that we plan to break or at least deprecate. But that's not really an official place that people know to go look at. So we should probably formalize that for the list of things that people should go look at, and then we're not going to break anything that is not listed here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So fun fact for the end of this call, C++17 actually specifies a deprecated keyword. So in 25 years' time, we can actually use that.
Good to know. Hopefully we'll be ready in 25 years.
Yeah. When Tom starts complaining that C++17 is too old to maintain on his test equipment, maybe we can do it.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, that was a very productive call. Next call is we might actually skip the September call because of GR.
I think we will. We've traditionally skipped the dev calls the month of the conference.
Yeah. So expect an announcement for the next call date on the G Plus page, as usual, and hopefully we'll see everyone at the conference, and if not, well, we'll see each other online.
See you on IRC.
I'll see you wherever. Okay, bye guys.
All right, thanks. Bye.